set?
It's all set. Yep, just put it wherever you're gonna put it.
Sure.
I should do the same thing and get myself a beer.
Make it more casual.
Would you grab me one? Would you grab me one up there? Yeah, just ask the bartender for one for me so I'm not don't get all dried out. Yeah, we're all set. Hey, can everybody give Josh and his band a big round of applause, please? These guys are outstanding. They came down tonight. He's been working all day over the Crossroads. Thank you, Josh. You guys sound amazing. Absolutely fantastic. Hey, welcome everybody. How's everybody doing?
All right.
How's everybody doing, man? Hey, I want to give all of you a big round of applause for coming out tonight, hanging out and being cool and having fun. That's what it's all about here for us. For me, that's what it's all about. I want everybody to have fun, have a good time, and we're going to change things up a little bit tonight from what was originally planned. Captain Nick Sokolowski is sick, unfortunately. Sicky sick, and even his little girl's sick. So he didn't want to come tonight and get everybody else sick, which I applaud, but I also am thanks, Pete. And I'm also sad because Nick really worked hard on a presentation. It was the first time he would have done a seminar. He's going to be at the Greater Niagara Sports Show next week, and if anybody happens to go out to that show, he's doing a bunch of seminars for the people there. So I really hope that everybody can see him when he does that. But Nick's a local guy. Soko Baits. They've got stuff back there that he donated for raffle. Couple housekeeping things because Nick's not here. So this is my friend Jake from State Farm, and that joke never gets old. We can't stand too close to each other. I see, because we get feedback. But so Jake works for Cornell. Jake is who you see out in the lake when he's coming around doing the creel surveys. And we met last year. God, back in June, I think you come up to my boat and said, "Hey, can I ask you a few questions?" I said, "Yeah, sure, as long as I can ask you a few questions." And we started talking about just the lake, and it's our lake, you know, and I like Jake and everybody that watched the videos. Jake's had a lot of really great feedback because this is our chance as anglers to talk to the science part of life a little bit and have him answer some questions, or, you know, he's dispelled a couple rumors for me this year that it was wonderful. And come to find out, after 51 years, I always called a sunfish, but it's actually a pumpkin seed. So I've been wrong my whole life, which I don't like to admit. But so what we're going to do is we're going to talk for 15, 20 minutes. And just the way Jake and I normally do, I got some questions for him. And then we're going to take some comments from the crowd. Possibly if somebody monitors my live feed, we can ask some questions from the online viewers. My thought in this is I want to talk about how we finished last fall with especially our shad hatch, which is critically important to our fishery. What, if anything, is going to be the good or bad effect on this poor ice year? And I've heard quite a few different theories on what the ice means to us, because I think from a simpleton point of view that I thought, geez, if we didn't have any fishable ice, I'd rather it be open and I could have stayed in my boat all winter long. And I know that shouldn't happen, but let's say that there was no ice whatsoever this winter. What would that have done to the lake?
So legally, I don't know whether or not it would have been allowed to be out fishing from a boat. I'm sure it probably would have, but it would have just meant a lack of pressure on those fish, which in the long run could have been good for us in the spring.
Okay.
Once the regular season opens up, you know, an unpressured fish is a fish that's ready to eat a bait. So in theory, that could be one thing that happens with this loss of ice that we've had this year, which is irregular from the years past, recently anyway, that we've had ice fishing season-wise.
I don't know, by show of hands, I mean, I'm born and raised here. I left in the military for a couple years, but I mean, I graduated from Central Square, so I know the local area. Can anybody remember a winter like this? Like this weather is so confused. Like what year? You started to raise your hand right away, but I don't ever remember a winter like this. And I guess people could say like global warming isn't a thing. I'm not quite sure how you can, I don't know how you can look at yourself in the mirror and go, it doesn't exist.
And
Something's existing,
with 60 degrees coming up this week.
It's the middle of February.
Yeah, which is arguably our most brutal month, temperature-wise, in years past.
Now, Captain Tony Poof is not here tonight with us, but Tony was one of the people that said to me, if we don't get that heavy ice cap and it doesn't stratify the temperatures in that lake and it would be allowed to mix, then you would have that much colder temperature all the way through the column and that we would start having bait fish populations negatively affected. Is that true?
It could be. I mean, right now, most of the lake is covered with ice. We have open channels through different sections of the lake, mostly where we have shoals, inlets, outlets, and that sort of thing. What you would anticipate, where all that runoff that we've been experiencing is running into the lake.
Right.
So, in theory, that water is a little warmer, and bait fish will generally tend to congregate toward those warmer areas. It will force them deeper in the more open sections of the lake. So between those shoals down toward the east end, the warmer water sits on the bottom.
So how warm would that water be right now?
Just, I mean, maybe 34, 35, 36.
Okay.
So above freezing, but still extremely cold.
Right, of course. And so that's where that bait fish, those schools are going to congregate to.
They're going to have that sort of refuge in those areas of the lake. I mean, even if we saw the inlets and outlets with ice on them, however thin it may be, that's where those bait fish are going to congregate. And then obviously we have areas of the lake like Big Bay where you guys have been catching panfish just out the wazoo. But that's a unique area of the lake. We have a marshy ecosystem behind that that's full of springs, creeks, little brooks that are all feeding it with slightly elevated temperatures of water. But because it's so shallow, we have some nice stable ice there, which gives us the opportunity to get out. But that also provides a sort of refuge area for bait fish.
Now, this year we've had it, I had a job going on the last month out in Sylvan Beach, and so I was going down the North Shore, the South Shore on a daily basis, and that it skimmed over, and then it was open.
Exactly.
And then it skimmed over, and then it was open, and that's happened 3 or 4 times. Does that have an effect on our fishery, and those fish, do they care about that? I mean, do they care what's going on up there?
As far as I know, they don't really care. I mean, as it gets colder, they're going to go deeper at where they can.
Right.
So as a walleye moves from a 30-foot section of the lake into a 20-foot section of the lake, they're going to stay on that bottom section for the most part, just because that's where the warmest water is, that's where the food's hanging out, and it's just less work for them.
Okay. So now, let's turn the clocks back a little tiny bit to last fall. It seemed like everybody I talked to and everybody that was on the lake every day, it was shad fest. There was shad everywhere. And if anybody went out around Freemax at all, Lakeport Bay, the back of that bay, there was 10,000 seagulls in there every morning, and they were working those schools in 3 foot of water. So what was last year's shad hatch like in relation to years prior? Is it back to normal?
So obviously we haven't processed our data yet from the fall, but Anecdotally, we are thinking that it is much higher than the last 2 years, which were
Much higher.
which were definitely down from previous levels. So whether we're back at the levels that we were seeing below that or above it, that's something that would be available for you guys at one of the upcoming Oneida Lake meetings. That'll be in our annual report that comes out every year,
Okay.
along with population estimates and that sort of thing. But just from being out on the electrofishing boat, out talking with you guys, I was seeing a lot of shad, just a lot of shad. And when we're going into 2.5, 3 feet of water with our shocking boat, with spotlights in the water, and you can't see the bottom because the shad is so thick,
Yeah.
it's a relatively good sign.
How many walleyes you see in there doing that? I mean, you see eyeballs all over the place, I'm assuming, right?
Eyeballs everywhere. It was a good year for the shad as far as we know so far, and definitely a extremely valuable food source for the walleye. We were able to pick up a couple of scale samples from some extremely large northern pike,
Really?
which were a surprise. They were in there getting in on the buffet too. And then, of course, we would see smallmouth, largemouth, pickerel, the usual criminals,
Okay.
also in there getting in on that.
How, for everybody sitting here, like how big is a big northern?
They were over 30 inches.
Really?
Yep,
Wow.
yep.
Any walleyes in that range?
Not that I remember. When we were doing our mark and recapture over at the hatchery this spring, we did have a couple of walleye that were in that 25 to 28 window. Now, that being said, those fish could have migrated from Onondaga Lake,
Okay.
which it happens. Fish move around when you have systems that are connected by a nice river like that we have around here. It gives them that opportunity, and that's only good for us because that mixes the genetic pool.
Gotcha.
And gives us, every once in a while, we get one of those giant females or males. They're in that gene pool, which is only a good thing for us, whether or not they head back to Onondaga or not.
Have you ever personally seen a 30-inch walleye in this lake? Whether
Not in my
shot or
hands.
netted
I've heard about them,
from hatchery people?
yes, but I have never seen one.
So I saw a picture, where's Don Terry? I saw a picture Don Terry sent me, 2 weeks ago, Don, maybe? And that fish was caught off of Lakeshore Yacht and Country Club in South Bay, and it was 28 and a quarter. That is a big, big walleye for this lake. And I've talked to the people, Courtney and I were over filming, doing some underwater shots at the hatchery a couple springs ago, and we got talking with the hatchery people, and they said they had multiple double-digit weight fish, so I just assume when they hit double digits, they gotta be 30-ish.
Definitely, I would definitely assume so. At that weight especially, you're definitely looking at least 28, 29 for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
I would think so. Does anybody, let's start a question. Anybody have a question for, I don't know if I can trust either of the two of you. I'll go with Don Birdie.
Where did the shad come from?
He wants to know, where did the shad come from?
So in the fall, when we were shocking, we were seeing shad yay big. So 3 inches at the max for the most part. And those fish are gonna head into the creeks and river systems wherever they can to eat a lot of microorganisms, especially insects like a trout would. And in the Oneida River, they're gonna be moving up and down that until they get up to around 6 inches. And then they'll start hanging out in the lake again. And you caught a nice adult shad this summer.
My first time ever, it was
Exactly.
15 plus inches. I didn't know what the hell it was, to be quite honest with you, at first.
Yep, so we'll see those through our shocking and netting efforts all throughout the year. They turn up every once in a while. Obviously, just because we don't see that many fully adult shad, Walleye are eating pretty good. And like I said before, walleye like to move around just as much as the shad do. So they'll move into the creeks, into the river, and they'll be eating those shad throughout
Those
the winter.
shad are
If-
spring spawner, yes?
Yes.
Spring
If
spawner.
they're available, they will definitely take a shad. But yeah, they hang out in the rivers for the most part throughout the winter.
Eric, you said you had a question.
Emerald
What about
shiners,
emerald shiners? Buckeyes?
yeah, I would categorize them as your run-of-the-mill bait fish. Like, they're relatively happy in any part of this lake in particular because it's relatively shallow. I see the most of them when we're shocking in the shallowest weed beds. Especially in the fall, they move into around the islands and shoals, hanging on those weed beds right on the edge of the drop-off is usually where I see the most of them. I hope that helps.
Now, I know we're talking about different bait, and you and I have talked about this before, but as a whole, if you were doing the bait fish pizza pie, the majority of, let's take our walleyes, the majority of these walleyes are living on yellow perch. And that's a huge, huge percentage. I mean, then everything after that are really, you said, minor players in the game.
Yeah, I mean, we still have large populations of these bait fish, which is just fantastic for our lake. Young of year yellow perch, so from the previous year's hatch
Okay.
class, those are very important for walleye through the spring, summer, fall. And once they get over 3 inches, they start developing a more pronounced dorsal spine, and walleye will kind of turn off of them.
Okay.
Now, that being said, particularly greedy large walleye will go after a perch that's over a year old. But, I mean, it's when the opportunity presents it.
Right.
And when those perch start getting to be that size where they have that obvious defense mechanism is conveniently when we see those 1 to 3 inch shad start showing up.
So how are these, so the shad, we have emeralds, we have
Emeralds.
gobies.
Gobies.
What other forage base do we have in here that aren't yellow perch?
We have killifish, trout perch, and then young sunfish, Lepomis. They're also extremely plentiful in this lake. So when they're, again, under 1 year old, still a major player in that bait fish category.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. Anybody else have a question? Right here in front.
Why don't you see a bigger population of the bigger size fish in Oneida like you do in Ontario or Erie?
One, it has to do with the size of the water body. And then, again, with that size, you have to take in how it'll affect the bait fish population with just availability of food and room for them. So as you get to a bigger lake, you have more opportunities for shoals, bays, inlets, outlets, and that gives those bait fish a better opportunity to have those shelter populations. And it just increases the amount of food along with the surface area and volume of the lake. So they kind of go hand in hand. As you get bigger, the bait fish population has the opportunity to reach a larger population to provide that base for a 30-inch walleye traps.
That one came out.
Okay, we'll do a quick outline one.
Sure.
This is Nat Lussey. The smallmouth are getting fatter, but are there a good number of smallmouth in Oneida or the next generation? Do gobies hurt smallmouth reproduction? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, so we did have the Bassmaster Elite Series this year
Yeah.
on Oneida Lake. And talking to those guys, you know, you get guys that know Oneida Lake and know the size of bass that they're going to catch, like 5 pushing 6 is a
big
fish
smallmouth here, yes.
And then you have the guys that it's their first time coming here and they're only catching 3-pounders and they're disappointed. But they do provide a good amount of fish. So they're catching a lot of that 2.5, 3-pound fish. It's a good reproductive size and they make up a good chunk of our population. And I mean, personally, I think that we definitely have a good population of smallmouth running in this lake. And as far as the gobies, I mean, we were just as nervous as everybody else when they first showed up around 2014-ish.
Yeah,
And I mean, if you're in a shallow spot where there are gobies and smallmouth nests, if you catch that smallmouth on the nest, you're gonna see gobies move in because
really, that quickly?
the opportunity presents itself and they're going to take it. But we haven't seen a major effect yet.
Okay,
It-
interesting.
It could be too soon to tell. It could be minimal at best. But we haven't seen that high of an impact from the gobies, mostly because everything's eating them.
Right, right. I know they've changed the St. Lawrence River system,
Yes.
Eastern Lake Ontario.
Yes.
I remember as a kid fishing the St. Lawrence River in Cape Vincent when I was in high school, and you couldn't see the bottom in 20 foot of water. Now you can see it in 45, you
Yep.
know? But the smallmouth, before you would catch a 20-inch smallmouth, it was 3.5, maybe 4 pounds. Now it's 6.5.
Yep.
Almost 7. I mean, my wife back there got a 6'2", and that fish was just over 20 inches.
Yeah.
You know, so I should have missed it with the net when I had the chance, but I didn't. Because I love my wife, wherever she is back there. That's why. Any other questions for Jake? John, right here in front.
So, water is kind of a fluid that's very unique, where as it gets colder, it rises. So
Yep.
ice rises to the top. The coldest water is 39 degrees, so that would be at the bottom of the lake, because it's a shallow lake.
Yes.
So would you find more of the fish in the 18, 20, 24 fish, depths rather than the shallower?
This time of year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This time of year?
In theory, yes. But I mean, as we all know, fish are temperamental and they're going to do what they want to do. But yeah, in theory, they're going to be hanging out in where the warmest water is. Because they're cold-blooded, it's less work for them. They're expending less calories as they're moving around.
And the fantastic problem to have on this lake is we have so many fish.
Exactly.
Because, like you said, in all last fall and winter, you and I fished the flat out front here, and you weren't, there's no defining characteristic in that flat that says those fish are gonna be here. There's no rock pile, there's no difference in bottom composition, and it's 15 to 19 once you get outside the weed line. Those fish are still there. They're inside the weed line, which isn't really there anymore, but they're not gone either. Those weeds are just laid down on the bottom. I was in 10 foot of water right off of Don and Terry's house in Muskrat Bay the other day, and the only walleye I saw all day, the three of them were swimming right over the top of the weed beds in 9 foot of water. So I guess the simple answer to that partly is nothing is ever any one thing all the time. There's so many fish that, because those same days we were getting them out in that 15 to 19, the guys just east of us were in 25 to 35, and there was guys all over in 15 or less. And everybody was catching fish because that's unfortunately kind of the nature of the beast. It more comes down to,
Where the food's at.
well, and yes, but from a fisherman perspective, what do you feel like doing?
Yeah.
Where do you feel like fishing that day? Because most likely you can get fish in that area somewhere, wherever you pick on our lake. I mean, because
Yeah.
it's not like we have sections of Oneida that are dead.
Yep.
That's just not a thing. I mean, which, wonderful, man, we're blessed.
And that's the other thing that works into this whole food availability thing that I talk about a lot is mayflies. Walleye are eating mayflies right now as we speak. How they do it is
So it's all larval stage?
they look like your trout flies that you have for stoneflies in a river. The ones that we have out here, the giant hexagenia, they are a burrower. So like a crayfish or a frog in the winter, they're gonna burrow into the substrate. And how the walleye get them out of there is still a mystery to us. We did get a fancy new ROV this year with a camera on it, so we hopefully might be able to send it down below the ice at some point and hopefully get some footage of a walleye digging mayflies out of the soil.
That would be incredible
That would
on
be
multiple
incredible.
levels. Can you imagine
It would be
seeing them
incredible.
bulldozing their nose, that big pointed shovel nose?
It would be crazy. And that's the
What
thing.
What else is out there? We talked about bait fish. What else is out there in the bug world right now? Because somebody told me they had a bucket of perch that were spitting up freshwater shrimp, or what they call freshwater shrimp.
Mysid shrimp.
Okay.
Mysid shrimp. So there's a lot of different species of mysid shrimp. And they're a very staple food source for perch, no matter the size. They're just something that species gravitates toward as a food source.
Okay.
They're essentially straight protein, much like any bug.
Right.
You know? And those little itty bitty perch that we were talking about earlier, they're just gorging themselves on those. So they're a key factor in those perch getting to our hopefully football shaped perch eventually.
One more question I have before we take another question from the crowd is, so you talked about without the ice that there goes that fishing pressure from the ice. Now you and I have talked before, and the state has changed limits around. They've increased our walleye limits. They've put a limit on perch. And I know that you and I have had this conversation and on other videos. Tell me your perspective on rod and reel affecting a fish population, especially like our fish population. How much does that really play in? Can we ever fish out by rod and reel without netting? Can we ever fish out a fishery like this?
It is unlikely, but there is always that potential. I mean, history shows us that on the Great Lakes, Ontario, Erie, Michigan, Huron, they had commercial lake trout fisheries. And once those commercial fisheries shut down and they didn't regulate those lake trout populations sort of in tow with that, they let it lapse, it decimated the population. So now they're undergoing reconstruction efforts and all of that. So there's always that potential for it to get out of hand. Will it? Unlikely.
I mean, you would have to have a massive amount of people on our
Massive.
lake every day,
Massive.
taking full limits
Yes.
every single day like it was their job. And I know I get this a lot from everybody. And I'm looking at a couple of people out there that couldn't catch a limit with a fistful of fish. I'm looking at one particularly right over there right now. But I hear this a lot, and I get these questions a lot, and there are some days where I'll get a couple thousand messages from people every day, and it's, what do you think about this, or what do you think about, overfishing, and if somebody's, catching 100 perch a day and putting it on, whatever. I look at people like Jake and the wonderful staff at Cornell and even New York State, and I'm not really I believe our government kind of person, but the track record for New York State DEC, though a little rocky at times, we're still sitting on the banks of the greatest fishery in this state, and really in the Northeast, quite honestly.
Yeah,
And there's nothing
arguably.
like it that isn't international water. And so I guess I have a little bit more faith, and of course, And it's funny, I got to meet somebody that I could actually talk to, and I know, and even what Jake doesn't know, he has connections that he can find out, you know, and he has an uncle at the hatchery, and so I like putting this kind of person in front of everybody because we get real answers, and so my answer to a lot of people when they say to me is, you know, what do you think about everybody keeping all these fish? I don't keep many fish. And the simple fact is because I just don't really want to spend the time to clean them, honestly. And maybe I would if Eric's laughing at me, you know, but I've cleaned too many fish in my life for customers. So I just like to be able to let them go. And that's just me. But I reserve everyone's right. If the state said it's okay, they have done the math. And the fact is that with this increased walleye limit, there are still people that won't catch in limits with 3 fish.
Sure.
And that doesn't really matter. And I don't want to be hung up on limits, but you want to catch your limit and you do it, and the next day you want to do it again, God bless you. I am all for it. Because people smarter than me have put together the data over all these years.
Yeah.
And how many of you are out there in this state, different fisheries? I've answered these questions every day coming back in on the charter boat in different ports I've worked on them with the angler survey there. And as anglers too, I want to say that it is our responsibility as well to help these people out and tell them what we do, because that's who impacts what we do going forward. So that's my 2 seconds on that. What time we got? Anybody got a time check? 7:08. We got till 7:15 for Jake's segment. So let's take some questions. You already had one? Mario.
Hey, I don't know if I understood your answer earlier about the Great Lakes. You said that when they stopped the commercial fishery, the salmonids, that decimate after that.
Yeah, so
With the lake trout fishery?
especially on the more western lakes, there was just kind of a lapse in the regulation process of recreational harvest of lake trout. So,
More than the commercial?
no, they didn't, but they didn't give it the proper amount of time to recover. So it was just, you had that wait.
After the commercial efforts were done.
Exactly. So once that commercial effort ended, it was just sort of a free-for-all. And I know right now, especially on Lake Michigan, they're going through treaty negotiations with Canada and tribes out there to mandate their lake trout harvest, because they have always had a commercial harvest through every treaty they've ever had with the U.S. government.
I'm pretty sure Lake Ontario is the only one left that doesn't have any commercial fishing on it.
As far as I know.
As far as I know.
Yeah, as far as I know
Okay.
too. So yeah, it was just kind of a double whammy where they just didn't jump on it when it was that critical point to kind of turn things over. I hope that helps.
Anybody else? How about this side of the room over here? Merlin, what do you got, buddy?
The drawdown of the lake and then no real snowpack to melt and grade levels back up. What do you see that that's going to end up doing to not only this lake, but obviously every other lake?
Yeah.
So Merlin's asked the question with the drawdown of the lake and without the big snowpack, what's that going to do to the lake?
Yeah, so normally we get that one big melt in the spring, which brings in a lot of minerals like phosphorus and stuff like that, which is critical for our plant growth in the lake. Right now, we're getting a little bit of snow and a little bit of runoff, a little bit of snow, a little bit of runoff. So it'll be interesting. Normally in the winter, our linology people go out and take samples of the ice to look at the amount of stuff that's coming into the lake throughout the winter.
Oh, really?
This year, they're unable to use their snowmobile because we got a big open channel in front of Shackleton Point that we can't seem to get across. And they have to haul a bunch of equipment out there and stuff like that, so they're just unable to do that. Otherwise, we'd be getting little data points that say, this is what's coming in how much quantities. So we don't really know what's going to happen with it at this point. We'll have to wait and see until the spring and summer. But yeah, it's intermittent runoff versus a more regular month of runoff, if that makes sense.
Is there a maximum they would get to for a drawdown in feet of, I mean, how do they,
Yeah, that I'm not too sure of.
Okay, I don't wanna ask you anything out of your
yeah,
wheelhouse.
Yeah, that's a canal authority and
okay,
Coast Guard thing.
Don, right there.
Yeah, when I was a kid growing up, it was a rarity to catch a chain pepper. We caught more than one back then, and that was a long time ago. And everybody knows how it's gone the last 15, 20 years with the pickerel. So, in my experience this past summer, I think I caught 3 or 4 the whole summer, and I fished almost the same areas that I have the last year.
Yep.
So, are your data showing any less numbers, or maybe they leveled off as far as the population of pickerel?
Yeah,
Because
so-
it seems that we're seeing more northerners being posted in pictures and
Yep.
hot dogs, so I'm just curious.
Yeah, we are kind of thinking that they are down from previous years. How much is yet to say, but just from what we've processed so far, we do think that they have dropped just a little bit. Yeah, whether or not how severe, that'll be one of the things that would get brought up in that OLA meeting where we present the annual report.
Here's one of my favorite questions I like to ask Jake every time is, what's the sturgeon numbers doing, and are we ever gonna have a sturgeon fishing season on this lake? Because boy, that would be a hoot.
Yeah, I mean, sturgeon are doing real good. This year, we didn't get any over 100 pounds. So, I mean, whether or not we get over 100 pounds, it's exciting when we do.
How long is a 100-pound sturgeon?
6 feet.
6 feet.
Yeah. So I can't remember.
You're just minding your own business,
Yeah.
you're jigging along and I was,
Yeah. Yeah.
that would be awesome.
At the Oneida Hatchery, there is a beautiful painting done by one of the staff members there, which is the biggest lake sturgeon that has been caught by anybody in Oneida Lake. I want to say she was 6'2",
Really?
3. I can't remember the weight, but well over 100 pounds. So if you guys want to see what that fish looked like, it is right in the lobby on the wall next to the bathrooms at the Oneida Hatchery.
Do you know by chance the tentative schedule events for the hatchery for spring? Like, do you know when they start with the nets and all that? And will it be earlier this year, assuming that we're gonna have early ice out?
It could be. It could be.
Did they time it more with time of the year or with ice leaving the lake?
More with the time of the year than the ice leaving the lake. Obviously, they are right on Screeva Creek.
Yep.
So they can see the first fish that moves up.
Okay.
So basically, as soon as they see fish in the creek, they are out there dropping nets
Interesting.
and bringing them right into the tanks.
Anybody, last question? Oh, right there.
If you do happen to catch a sturgeon, what's the protocol for, releasing them, taking them? I caught one by mistake, obviously, and I got so much hate mail that it wasn't even fun. I didn't get it on board and released it in the water.
Yeah.
What is the protocol?
So that was proper protocol. Try not to remove it from the water. I mean, if you get it really good and you have trouble getting the hook out, you kind of have to bring it out of the water if you can. But yeah, ideally, leave it in the water and unhook it. And if it has a dangle tag, it's a little yellow stick hanging off of the dorsal fin. That has our phone number or DEC's phone number. And should it have that tag, you just call that phone number and say, hey, I caught this fish. This is where I'm at. We'll say, thank you very much. Did you let it go? And hopefully you say yes. And send it on its way. But yeah, that's how
Stuck
we.
in the live well.
Yeah, we don't get that call very often. Every once in a grand while we do. But we definitely hear plenty of anecdotal reports like you. I was just putting along and boom, there's a sturgeon.
I'm assuming everyone's had those fish that open water, or even through the ice, you hook them and you never see it before it breaks you off. I mean, and really in this lake, they could be carp of gigantic sizes.
They could be a big
They
drum.
could be drum. They
Yep.
could be a catfish.
Yep.
Do we have tigers in here, don't we?
There's rumors. I don't
Could be
think
a
there's
big northern.
Yeah.
Could be a sturgeon. So you never quite know, really. There is still a lot of stuff swimming around this lake that we're not necessarily sure what is down there.
Yeah.
So
Like we have burbot in this lake, which are a cod.
right.
It's just an
right.
odd thing to be in a lake this size. Normally, you would think of a fish like that in one of the Great Lakes where they have extreme depths. Because they're a bottom feeder.
Yep.
They like deep water.
So, all right, that's going to do it for this, guys. We're going to take a intermission before Brian comes out. I want everybody real quick to give Jake a big round of applause. Jake is the best. He's the best, and he agreed to come in and talk with everybody, so thanks, buddy. Of
course.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and if you guys come up with questions later on, my Instagram is JakeVDV, and then my
Yeah,
Facebook
absolutely.
is Jacob Vandevalk. Feel free to shoot me a message, and
And I know he's open to answering questions
Yeah.
with a beer. So,
yeah, if I don't know the answer, I know somebody who can figure it out for you.
thanks, buddy.
No problem.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I should turn it
Yep.
off. Just click that.
Hold it down so it turns
Hey, did anybody else tell their wives this was their Valentine's Day night out? Besides me? All right, few of us were thinking, right? Come on, honey, I'm taking you out for Valentine's Day. We're doing it tonight. Double dipping, that's all I was doing.
Yeah, that's, oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. This is, welcome to Valentine's Day, honey. Mine's back there working on the, mine's back there working, I love it. Yeah, but. Yeah, as long as you guys are cool with it.
Grab another. Grab another. All right. All right, I'll do it just like a concert. Encore, encore. All right, I'll come on stage. Hold on. For the drama. All right. Hey, listen, he's got another one. He says it's way bigger and better than the last one. So that last one, that was nothing. He's got another one. He says it's way bigger, way better.
Which one's he doing?
2 times more than that first junk one we sold.
Junk one? Oh my God. Is he talking about that big one in the foyer as you walk in the door?
I don't know where he went. He went to go get it. He's way back there.
Oh, he's got it right there.
He says it's so big he can't even move it.
Everybody turn around and look at Scott right back there.
Yeah, turn around. This is a big one.
That's what she said.
Not the first time we've heard that.
I swear I didn't say anything.
All right, is he bringing that up here, Josh? Yeah, bring it up. All right, so we're going to sell this one to the highest bidder. You guys that were this close, you know the name of the game. You just got to pay a little more, right? That's how it goes. What'd the last one bring? 800, 900? At least. Here it comes. This is the Pro right here, the Otter Pro. That makes you a better fisherman right out of the gate.
It says Pro right in the name.
Yep, this one's a 4 to 5 fisherman right there. Brand new in the box, it's the Otter Pro. This holds 4 to 5 guys. It's the Otter Pro Lodge right
This
there.
one's thermal, Dad. This one's a thermal.
Thermal, all right, there you go, you got it, John. All right, boys, bigger, better, stronger, faster. That's what we're going after right here. What do you get, piles at 800? 800, 800, 800, we can buy, we can buy. Start me at 2. 2 and a quarter, 2 and a half, 275, 3. 3. You'll never get anything with that attitude. 3 and a quarter. 3 and a quarter, 3 and a quarter, 3 and a half, 375, 375, 400, 4 and a quarter. You're out now, gonna be 4 and a quarter, 4 and a quarter, 4 and a half, 475, 475, 500, 5 and a quarter, 5 and a quarter, 500, 5 and a quarter, 5 and a quarter, 5 and a half, 575, 550, 575. It's this way now. You gotta go this way to get it. 550, 575. My 550 standing up right there. Everybody else is out. 550 to 575. 550 to 575. 550 to 575. So, 550 right there. Thank you very much.
I don't know.
All right, I got one more to sell you.
Really?
It is the Taj Mahal of ice fishing champagne. Puts that one right to shame, I tell you.
Oh my God.
Guys, it's right in the entryway.
No.
You want to be the envy of all your friends? That's the one to buy right there.
$1,000.
Guys, this thing retails, I think, over $1,500 retail value.
I think it's more than that.
I think big money. All right? Can you give me some exacts on that one? As far as size, anything you gotta know? Thermal, obviously, right? All insulated. It's got 3 doors on it. It's got the front door, side door, and back door. Right. Guys, that is the Taj Mahal of shanties right there. You want to get away from the white for a day, that's the one to do it in. Not that I would ever do that, but some guys are known for that. Made in the USA, that makes it worth it more right there.
Back up a little bit so the channel can see.
We're still here.
We haven't forgot about you guys.
We haven't forgot about you. We're here. All right, guys, you're buying that one in the entryway right there. If you were ever going to own one, that's the one right there. You guys that are buying it without your wife knowing it, you can store it at my place in case you don't want to bring it home.
You gonna go fishing?
Already got a hitch on it.
And that one's put together for anyone that's had to put a 2-man chain together.
Oh, we had to do that. Yeah, that one's all put together, ready to go.
On this one, should we do something if someone out there wants to?
If you guys want to bid out, if you guys want to bid, can you see the comments? Can you see the comments?
I can see the comments right here, yeah.
All right, guys, if you want to bid on that shanty, have they seen that shanty? They don't even know what they're bidding on, though.
No, but I can take them over and show them.
You better go fast.
Here, I'll take ours too.
You better go fast. If they want to bid on it, tell them we'll be the final bid. We're going to start it right now, though, okay? Go over and show them. I think these guys got it in them right here. All right, guys, there we go. That is the shanty to beat all shanties right there. You want to be the happy of everybody out on the lake? That is the one right there. All right, go. Get about that shanty right there. What do you say on that one? We get 2,000. 2,000. We get 2. We get 15. How we get 15? We get 15. We get $1,000. 1,000. 1,800. Beat 500. Let's roll. You see what the little one brought? That's the big boy. I got 300, 350, 350, 350, 400, 450, 500, 500, 500, 550, 550, 600, 650, 650, 600, 650, 700. You gotta be 700, 700, 750, 750. Boys, you ever wanted one, this is the one. You know it is and I know it is. I got 700, 750. Room for anybody 750, 800, 750, 800. 750 right there, 800.
Does anybody out there want to get in on this, to get on this auction? We got 31 people looking.
He's smiling from ear to ear because he knows he's stealing. He's not even halfway there yet. More than 50% off right now. I got 750, 800. 750, 800, 800.
750. If anybody wants to get in on the auction, you can bid right now, live on channel. I'm looking right at the comments.
I got 750, 800, 750, 800, 800, 800, 800. I got 750.
Hold on.
775, one dime. 775, 800, 800. You were this close, man. Don't lose it for 25 bucks. I got 775, 800. 775, 800, 800, you look good in that thing.
Rumble seat, that big 2-man otter I just showed everybody.
775, 800. I got 775 right there. His wife told me if you won against you, you're going to kill him. You bid once, you're going to own it. 775, 800. 775, 800.
Oh, come on, here we go.
800. You want to be 800 there? You want to be 800 here? You got to be 800, 800. I got 800 here, 800 here. 800 there, I got 775 right there.
Wow, that is an incredible deal.
775, 800, 800, 800, 800. 775. You bid against yourself? You want to be 800 against him? Oh, 775, 800.
She's buying it for him with his money.
Well done. 775 right there.
That was awesome.
I think I met her before.
Yeah, I think I've seen, yeah. I've seen a couple turns.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, turn yours on.
How do you know? Get a lighter?
Yep.
What do we got?
Now this one you just put on, and this goes in your pocket.
Where's this go?
Over your ears like glasses. Just like that, yep. That was cool.
I just wanted to show you that. All right. This is going live right now.
We're trying. How's that look? Working? You hear me all right?
Yeah, bring that a little closer to your mouth.
So this, thank you.
All right, we're gonna go right from that auction. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Scott at Lakeside. Who won what? Larry, what'd you buy, buddy? Oh, man, that thing is sweet. Ah, I will let you set it up for me, start the heater, and then I will come show you how to catch perch as soon as all that's done. Don't call me any before that either. All right, we are going to move right directly into a seminar on, and Brian's going to talk about just straight ice fishing here on Oneida Lake, but originally he was going to talk about walleyes, Nick was going to talk about perch. He's going to do a little bit of both. He's got we can't stand too close together.
Good call.
We're electric, buddy.
Yeah, baby.
Brian's got the hair in back, I've got the hair in front. And so if we got together, we'd be great. He's got a great program for you. This is gonna run about 35 minutes and then we're gonna do question and answer with everybody when we're done. So please, everybody in back, let's give Brian our attention and I'll see you guys in a few minutes.
I'll back up when you're done for questions.
All right.
Okay, I just feel privileged to be here. I'll just give you a little bio about myself. I've lived on the lake for over 50 years. I've fished out Oneida for quite a long time and I have a ton of experience. I have a lot of memories and I'm just going to share you what my view is about some things and tell you what I like the most about the lake and what I can show you to be better at fishing. I'm a very passionate angler. My friends that are here and family, they know how much this means to me, and this is rewarding to me to tell you what I know. I just want to talk about safety in the current state of the lake. I live on the lake right now, and it's probably one of the worst conditions that I've seen in a long time. I live next door to Williams Park, and I see guys going out there every day.
Not your wife.
I have a friend that's partying today that he fell in front of my house.
That's true.
And you know what? I worry about everybody that's out there.
That's why we just need loud,
safety seriously,
volume.
you know, I feel bad for your family. And I feel bad for the people that have to rescue you.
That's the PA.
You think about the friends and the children and the people that will miss you.
Come over to
That's not a good feeling, you know, I just want to make sure everybody understands how important safety is to me.
I was showing it off.
I'm just going to give you some ideas, what you can think about before you go, and what to look for. And make sure that you're not risking somebody else's life that has to go out there and try to save you. I've got some really close friends that have young kids that are volunteer firefighters.
And I looked at him, and he looked at me.
They are volunteers. They don't want to,
or he goes, I'm
they
Kevin.
pretty much don't like fishing, but they like what they do. But the last thing I want for them to do is to risk their life to try to save somebody else. Not that someone needs to not be rescued, I guess, in that point, but, you know, just think about those things and pick your own battles. It's very important when you're going out there is pay attention to the conditions. I used to be the guy to check the ice every day. I would, you know, my wife would say, hey, you know, go out, check the ice, check the ice, check the ice.
He doesn't remember.
I would finally get to the point where it was 3 inches or 4 inches.
He used to hang out.
I'd grab my jet sled, I'd grab a rod,
kids, and we were always
and then I'd go out and I'd get, you know, check the ice, check the ice, and I'd get out there and I would take pride in being the first guy out. You know what? I'm not that guy anymore.
Because I said all the people that we know.
I talked to Terry Wicks on the phone last week. I said, I got to a certain age where like, that stuff's very not important. There's a lot of other things to worry about, but, you know, I would get a text message when I was out there and be the first guy, and my buddy Dickie Weiland would say, hey, is that you? My father's looking out the window. He said, there's some idiot out there fishing by the island.
Tina's yelling
And I'd
at
send him a selfie with a perch, like, hey, it's me. But, you know, that's those things that put behind you, but,
He's got
you know,
more
just pay
goddamn money.
attention
Look
to the
at
conditions.
he tries to
Make sure
figure
you
out how to
have the
spend
right
it.
safety equipment with you. You know, I'm a big fan of wearing ice picks.
I worked at that
These things stay around my neck all year long.
Exactly.
I don't care if there's 10 inches of ice, 20 inches of ice. If I'm gonna spend that much time out there, this is one little thing, inexpensive
Have you guys
thing
met?
that you can put around your neck to get you out of the ice. You know, you can buy the big flotation suits, you know, there's things that you can put in place, you know, but you never know what the conditions are.
Where do you buy the man that has everything?
More
very
stuff.
much around that you have to worry about.
He always
One other
stuff
thing I also do is I have a rope that I attach to my shanty. And what I've done is
You
I
said
put
that was
two
already
eye
covered.
bolts in the front of it, and I put these carabiners on the front of that sled.
I just have
Got a nice long rope,
which one I want, that's all.
and then if I have to get a
Well, he just
boat
did
cushion, or I
like,
bring a boat
what did you guys
cushion
do,
with me,
17
I
days
can
or some
unhook
stupid
this
shit in a row?
and throw it to somebody to probably save their life if I have to.
Yeah, we're
It's very inexpensive. You can buy these at Harbor Freight or Runnings or, Home Depot. So get that rope
You know,
on
and
there.
it's funny,
and then
you'll
throw
hear
it out
people
there.
bitch about certain people
I like
making
a
money,
long
like,
rope anyways,
I've told
you
him
get
all
that
the
on your
time,
body and
and
you're
I knew
walking
guys
out,
going all the way
there's
back to the
kind of
Nine
horizontal,
days when I
there's
was a
less
kid.
resistance and weight.
Those guys
So
earned
it's
every
ergonomically
penny,
friendly,
and without
but it's
them,
another safety
everything,
device. It's very
like,
inexpensive.
I'm in Shroom
that maybe
Lake,
that you're
it's
gonna
minus
see
20, and this
somebody
one,
Me going,
That's a
find out
very
Courtney
important
doesn't have any
situation
power,
that you just
we'll
want to
find
make
you.
sure that
I'm 4
take
hours
the
away.
air out of things.
I'm on.
One other thing, how many
rested
people
because
have
I
an
work
inflatable
day
life
shift and I
jacket
gotta
in
go
their
back
boat?
in at midnight to work
Put
a
this thing under
16-hour
your
shift.
coat.
So I'm trying to
It's
sleep.
very lightweight.
He texted me, so I
And,
wake up
you're
at
supposed to
11
wear one
o'clock
when
that
you're
night.
fishing after October 1st or the beginning of,
No,
what's it,
so
beginning of
I get,
April or
so I
May, I
end up getting
think.
called out at
I mean, if
11
you're in a
instead of
boat,
going in
right?
at
But,
midnight.
It's
So
something
I
that you
wake up
probably
and I see
already
his
own.
text
If
and
you
it was like
don't, it's just
9:47 and I'm
another
like, oh shit.
safety
So I'm
device that
texting
you
him,
can
so
wear.
I'm like,
It's not
I'm calling the
cumbersome.
line guys that
and
like
it's
trying
not gonna get in
a
the
hold
way.
of supervisor. They're like, oh yeah, it's gonna be this and that,
And
whatever.
just pay attention to the conditions. I've been out there
"There's been a crew
sometimes
assigned,
and,
this is,
the
blah, blah,
storms
blah,
will kick
whatever."
up
And he never
and all of
texted
a
me back
sudden
something.
things are
Okay,
changing.
it's fine.
You start catching fish and then you look at the radar. I called a couple buddies, they haven't started doing anything and all of a sudden, hell breaks loose. Fish are biting.
On the live.
You kind of lose track of what's going outside that shanty. And then you flip the window open and you see that it's snowing out there. You can't see 5 feet in front of your face. So, like anything, you just want to make sure you get home. And I'll go into some more details about electronics and how you can be better at understanding how to get home. But if you're not having that equipment, make sure that you pay attention to that stuff so that you get back before the storm comes. There's definitely times, it's like summertime when the wind blows up. You don't want to be out there because there could be 4-footers in a short amount of time. So it's very important that you pay attention to that kind of stuff. And it like I said, it can change in a moment's notice. And you think about, once you have that condition, all that stuff that you have to come back across, like pressure cracks or gas holes, or coming back late at night. I don't know how many times in the last 4 or 5 days I've seen guys come off the lake after dark. You would never, when I was growing up and going out there, to see this many people staying out there that late. If the Burns guys that were just here and one of them fell in, those people don't know he fell in, right? But that means that crack is not healthy. I know where it is. I walked out by it last Sunday and I'm like, you know what, I don't like this situation. All of a sudden it snowed last night. You don't see it. Right now it's got a little layer of ice and snow on it. Now it's like a false sense of like, hey, it was okay when I crossed it, but you might come down 10 feet from it and now it's a bad spot. So just pay attention to that stuff and be aware of what you're doing and how you're going to get home, because everybody wants you to get home. The next thing I want to talk about is early ice. Now, if we had a normal condition of the lake, where am I going to start? Early ice, I've already decided that, I know where the ice is safe. I live next to Williams Park, so the dumping grounds are there. You got the shoals off to your left. You got 2 big islands out there. But this situation, this techniques of looking for stuff applies anywhere. If you think about what the fish have been doing, they've been coming to shore to feed. The walleyes, for me, that's what I'm looking for, will always come back to check for food. So if I can get off the shoreline and start getting into like 10, 12 feet of water, and like you heard Matt say, a guy caught a big walleye in 6 foot of water, those fish are coming there pretty religiously. They're going to be there. So if you're gonna think about how much time you got and where you want to start checking the shoreline. If everybody's coming out of Williams Park and they're all going, hey, I see 50 guys out by the islands, it draws everybody to that area because they think they're catching fish. And I had a conversation with 2 guys last weekend. They said, we were out by the islands. They said, we didn't catch anything. We didn't see a whole lot of fish. I said, did you check inshore? They're like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, this ice is new. There's still a lot of oxygen. The bait may be there. And you know what? You probably walked by fish that you didn't know about. But don't waste a lot of time and capitalize on stuff that you look for and try to be effective. I would much rather fish a drop-off than try to go fish the dumping grounds just because there's a lot of people out there. Not to say that I'm not going to go out there and check it, but capitalize on spots like that can be very effective. And those spots can be good early and late. I could think that I've had situations where I might go out there and fish the last couple hours before dark, because those fish have been habitually coming there in the shoreline through the fall. They kind of want to do that at night, or they want to go there in the morning, or they're going to be there all night through the night into the morning. But think about that and try to check those spots, and then if you're not getting anything, just be ready to think about your next move and where you can fish. And if you think about the bays, you know, I was talking to Johnny, I guess, about where the bays and where the food is. You would never see a lot of people fishing the bays. But what happened this year, that's where the safe ice is. Guys are in there, they're catching perch, they're catching walleyes. Generally, by this time of year, we've already migrated out to the middle of the lake. If you had a normal conditions, you're already fishing the rest of the lake. So, you know, those spots are great. They've probably been overlooked for years because you didn't have to go in there and check. You know, you think about that shallow water, geez, I'm not going to go in there. I got this little spot, you know, I'm drilling one hole, I'm only covering maybe a 10-foot area, you know, but then again, there's probably some fish in there that are being overlooked. So just put that in your toolbox and think about that with the time you have and how effective you want to be. The dumping grounds to me is like a big collection area, I'll say. If I'm going to go fish the dumping grounds, I like to be very mobile. If you see me out there and we're fishing with some buddies, we try to spread out a little bit. I try not to get near some people. I'm going to cut a lot of holes. If I'm fishing a spot and I'm looking for walleyes and I got one rod and I'm going to be putting my fish finder down maybe for a half an hour, and this is all based on conditions and how much snow or how much easy it is to get around, I'm going to move a lot. You know, I might spend a half an hour. If I'm not getting busy and I'm not seeing fish, I might make a big loop. You know, I might head towards the shoal depending on the conditions and how well I can move around. And then that's going to make you a lot more effective. You might go 10 feet or you might go 100 feet and you drop in and all of a sudden there's 5, 10 fish there. You could have 3 fish on the ice in 5 minutes. It's happened to me a number of times. But I've spent a lot of times out there not being successful because I didn't move around enough. You know, you get caught up in the shanty, you got the heat on, you've got your coat off, you're all comfortable, you got the radio on, you got the snacks out, and then you're saying, geez, I'm not catching any fish. But then again, you know what? You got to put some effort into something and be a little more mobile sometimes if you can cover some areas. And the reason I say a vast area because it's a big flat area. Those fish are just moving around. They're waiting to go back to shore. They're waiting to go to some structure. They might be looking for some bait there, but you know they know where they want to go eat. You know that's their livelihood. You know you're going out there on a Saturday or a Sunday, and you're maybe fishing 1 day a week. You think about how much time you can fish and try to be effective. You need to put a little more effort into something to try to be more productive. And some of the things I think about now that I've lived on the lake so long, I live on Lakeshore Road. And like I said, back in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, there used to be a lot of bars. And that shoreline would always be covered with what? Snowmobiles. Up and down the lake. They would go from across the lake, across the islands, back into Boreos, and they would rip across we don't have that anymore. We don't have that traffic. We don't have those snowmobiles. And what happens with the traffic of the snowmobiles, in my impression of this, is that drives the fish out of there. It's very noisy. You know, those fish will not be places that there's been times when my 2 boys will tell you, if I'm out there fishing and they want to come visit or come fish, they'll park that snowmobile like, 100 yards away and come running up because I might be sticking my head out the window going, you know, I got a fish here. Don't come running in here because you're going to scare that fish away. So those are the things you got to think about. But if I know that I can start fishing the shoreline down towards Boreos or I can go into Maple Bay, those are like virgin territory for me. I know nobody's down in there. Those fish are near that area. There's no reason for them to leave. If you look at what's happened this fall, we had a lot of east wind. Well, a lot of east wind does. Heavy east wind knocks the weeds down. It clears the area out. Fish don't like when there's not a lot of oxygen. Fish don't like when there's not a lot of food. They want to be comfortable, they want to be well fed, and they want to travel in areas where they can get to that and be effective too. So just think about those areas, any spot, as long as there's not a lot of noise. I've found like if years past when it was that busy, I would just get away from the crowd, go out to the structure, and then that would be like a mid-lake bite for me, which should be going out right now if we had a normal season. I love fishing structure. It's just like me tournament fishing. I've done that for years. I've already got a plan. You know, I know that, you know, my friends that are in this room, you know, there's like a code of conduct and not giving up somebody's spot, right? Terry Wicks will send me a message. Hey, how's the fishing? Oh, I know where he's at. Terry probably knows where I'm at. But we're just trying to network. I want to know, like, what's different? What are we not doing? What can I do different? Does he got a different color lure on? But some of those things, you just use the resources you got, you know, pick up your phone, you know, that kind of stuff can help you be really successful. And when I go like to fish structure, I'll get into that spot if the ice is good. I like to go there really early. If I know the ice is good and I've been fishing right along, I'm going there before it gets light out. I've already had that initial contact with the area. I've already fished it for plenty of years. I want to get in there, be there before it gets light out. The first couple hours in the morning, and I don't know, probably everybody could attest to this, it's done any amount of fishing, that those could be the busiest times when those fish are either coming off the structure, they've already been there, there's not a lot of noise, and they're going to be busy. You know, you put down, all of a sudden, everything's going perfect. And then you're going to find, as it tails off and gets later, like 10 o'clock, it's like throwing a switch. Those fish aren't coming, they're not going, and they disappear. They've gone to do something else, out to maybe the dumping grounds or wherever they're going, they just disappear. So with that being said, I just like to know that if I'm going to work that structure, I may be, you know, down to Dakin, or I might be down to over to Loftus, but whatever structure, I know those holes and I know where those fish have been, I can always go back to them, right? I fish from the holes. The next thing I'm going to think about doing is, now that those fish are gone, I'm going to go out to the deeper water. And if anybody's got, you know, the cell phones nowadays, it's got a Navionics app on there. I can pull a map up on my phone and say, like, where do I want to go next? I've done this enough where, like, I know where I want to go, but look at some little rise or lowers or like little pancakes in the bottom. Those things will draw fish during the day. They might just go out there and mill around there. There's something that they like. They might transition through that area, but I will go out in that deeper water and start punching some holes. I might stay there a little longer than I would if I knew that, you know, just to kill some time. You might run into some perch out there most likely, but you can be very effective by not killing your whole day waiting for those fish to come back to the structure where they know they want to be there early or late. Those are just some of the things to think about. And just those are the times in the morning or late that they can be very productive. You could be catching, you know, 4 or 5 walleyes in 20 minutes notice. You know, you just want to make sure that you capitalize on that time. And once it slows down, like I said, just get out there, drill some holes, you know, think about maybe have your lunch, and just, you know, those are the times just to try to collect what you want to do for the afternoon. And maybe what I say is make a milk run. I might have those holes already cut back on that shoal. And when I come back, since the holes are already cut, you're a little more effective because you're not making a lot of noise. You can just slide in there, you know, maybe park your sled or four-wheeler a little ways away and just make that milk run and go back and fish those holes. And you can find that those fish are already back there and ready to eat. And the other thing about those shoals, and as you caught fish, you know, you don't know when you brought that fish up, they're fighting you, they throw their stomachs up. It's like chumming in the water. You'd be surprised how those fish will be attracted to scent. It's almost like, and I watch videos on YouTube, I listen to people that have a lot more thought and stuff and science in it, but it's probably twice as often that those fish are going to stay in that area because there's something there they like to smell. So move back to that structure early and late. And then for me, I like to stay away from the crowds. I know if I'm going out in the dumping grounds or I'm going to go fish some structure past Dakin and people have come out of Taft, there might be 100 guys in a small area because that's what they know. That's where they've been. Me, I'm not going to be in that crowd. I'm either going to go and fish another shoal. I'm not going to go in there because all of a sudden you're going to find with all that sonar, that pinging, all that talking, you know, you got the augers going, those fish will just go like really negative pretty quickly. The first few sets of guys that got there probably were pretty good. As more people moved in, everything starts slowing down, you know, and then you're saying, geez, why'd I come here? But just think about that and don't spend a lot of time if it's slowing down. The things about cold fronts and temperature swings, I think about, those are the hardest times for me to catch fish. It's just like being in a boat and you've been out there and there's a big cold front, temperatures dropped a lot, fish are negative. I find that the hardest conditions to fish. I mean, be honest with you, I'm just a regular guy. I don't catch fish all the time, but I know that that's going to be harder for me to catch fish. In some of the bigger tournaments I've fished in, if I've been out there and I've had a bad day and like we'd be in the boat and we're all frustrated thinking we should have, you know, X number of fish caught, and then we get to the weigh-in and there's like everybody else had a tough day. You know, you just think about what was going on. And if you can learn something from that experience, even if it's a bad day, I still think it's a successful day because I took something home. I added something to my toolbox, and I'm a little smarter next time. You know what? Those are the things that I think about the next time I'm going out. The next thing I want to talk about is technology. Technology is huge right now. So there's a lot of stuff out there that you can use to make yourself more effective. I'm an old school sonar guy. I have a Lowrance. This is from one of my boats, and I like it because it's got a map on it. It's got all my waypoints on it. I can pull that thing up, and it's very mobile. And I can spend a little bit of time getting that thing ready, and then I got it going, and I got it in the ice, and I'm all ready to go. And with that being said, I'm looking for fish once I have that on. I want to be efficient
Yeah,
with
biggest thing
what
is
the
you
fish are
can't
doing
stand
when they
directly
come in
front
on
of
it.
or like you walk by it.
And when I think about the relationship from the bottom to my lure, I'm looking at how those fish are reacting to that bait. I'm looking to see how quick they came in, how quick they want to come to my lure, and that's going to make me do different things on different occasions. I've spent so much time out there, good, bad, or indifferent. If that fish came in fast by itself, he's very interested. I might have to start working him off the bottom. I might jig that thing a foot, and all of a sudden he smashes it. The next thing you know, he's on the deck. The next time, I might have 3 fish come in. They're not very busy. They came in real close to the bottom, and those fish are very negative, and they don't want to come off the bottom. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to be more subtle. I might have a different rod that has a little softer tip. It's got to make the bait undulate a little better, but that fish will trigger on different reactions of vibration. What I found is, like, if I can get that fish to get off the bottom, my success rate is a lot higher, and I'm sure everybody experiences that. But if you look at a walleye and what he does on a camera, he's going to come in, even if they're suspended, the first thing they do, you might see them come on your graph, and all of a sudden they shoot to the bottom. Then they want to get underneath that lure. They want to see what they're looking at. Their eyes are on top of their head, right? They want to get a good picture of what they're going to grab. So using your sonar and being effective with that is very, very important, and being the relationship of how that fish is accurately attacking your bait.
you were having.
And that's very important. And the nice thing about the mapping system on these things and on your phone, you know, it's quick to make a waypoint. It's quick to add information to that or get information off it. I might look at that map while I'm sitting in the shanty and I'm saying, like, geez, I can run this over here. It's going to take me 20 minutes, make a straight line. You know what? Got it on my phone. I'm there. I'm ready to go. You know, but be thinking and cognizant of those other areas before you get to them, and just have a plan. I guess just don't go out there and expect that you're going to catch fish everywhere. And I know it's a hobby. You know, some people take it serious than others, but just enjoy yourself and then take all those bullet points into consideration. And the thing about the technology is, like, I like to know where the gas holes are. I like to know where the pressure cracks are. I want to know where any inconsistencies in the bottom are going to be. And those things have a relationship of where the fish might end up. But with that being said, I can make that waypoint. And so when I'm traveling back, I might put that on my handlebar of my snowmobile, or I have my phone out. I want to know when I come back that I'm not going to go over that gas hole. I'm not going to go over the pressure crack, and be very aware of the risk and the hazards out there, because they're going to take you in, and they're not going to be very healthy. And sometimes, like, pressure cracks are long range, you know. So I've been out there sometimes where we've crossed a pressure crack. We're fishing over in the North Shore. We're 5 miles from home. And then, you know what? All of a sudden you feel the lake shake a little bit. It's warming up. And all of a sudden something's changed. I was fishing with my nephew Jake a couple of winters ago, and I said, dude, we got to go. He goes, well, what do you mean? I go, something's not right. I could just feel and sense it from being out there so long. I said, we got to go. And what was happening, the lake was shifting, and I could tell that something wasn't right. And sure enough, you know, we make our way on the four-wheelers, and we're heading back, and I get over to that pressure crack, and it's a lot wider. And I look at him, I'm like, you know what? We still are okay. You know what? But we're going to make a good decision how we're going to cross this pressure crack. I might go a half a mile one way or the other. I want to know that I'm going to cross that thing in the smallest area, in the flattest part of that pressure crack. And with doing so, you're going to get back, but don't wait too long, and just pay attention to where those hazardous areas are. And if you're not sure, don't go near them. Stay away from them. You know, I'll get off my four-wheeler or snowmobile, and I'll go over there and spud that thing right up to where I can't get through it, or I'm back here and I did get through it. I'm like, you know what? It's not my day to cross it. Pick a different spot. Go back to where you were and enjoy your day and enjoy the experience. The other thing is like the AquaView. I love cameras. I have an AquaView over here. They can be very effective. If you're a new ice fisherman and you want to see what the relationship is, what the fish are to the bottom, what kind of fish they are, I've gotten so in tune to look at my graph, I can tell you if it's a walleye coming in or a perch because I've done it a long time. It's not 100%, but I'm pretty good at knowing what's going to happen and what kind of fish they are. But that kind of tool, technology-wise, is a good learning tool. When my boys were little, I would take them out there, and they would sit in the shanty with me, and my wife's like, when you coming home? I don't know, when we get tired or we get done fishing, but we're going to stay out there, and you get to learn a lot. You get to keep people engaged. It's great for the kids. It's like sitting at TV at home, but you're learning and you're experiencing a lot more stuff and gathering more information, which is a great thing. You're always learning. I learn still, and I just learned today from Jake from State Farm that the walleyes are eating mayflies in the winter. I didn't know. Now I know, right? They're still getting fat. They're digging up stuff on the bottom. And now that he said that, it triggered something in my mind what I might do the next time I get out there. You know, if those walleyes are digging in the bottom, I might take a heavier bait like a jig or something or some drop shot weight. I'm going out there and I'm starting to bound the bottom because they're going to sense something's in the bottom and they might not come and bite my bait, but I'm going to draw them under me and then I'll make the investment into try to capturing them and catching them. At least you drew them to where you were fishing and you have a better idea whether you're going to catch them or not. But those are things that trigger something and just being, you know, open-minded about what you can do and how you can catch more fish. The next thing I talk about is gear. I have a lot of different rod styles. I've been fortunate enough to have good contacts with the fishing industry for a lot of years, let you try stuff. They call me a professional angler. I'm just a regular guy in a pretty shirt. A professional angler, all he is someone that can buy a lot more gear at a little bit of price discounted. Don't take that the wrong way, but in my eyes, I'll never get rich fishing. I will compete at the highest level, but I will try new stuff when people put it in front of you, you know. 90% of the fish are caught on 10% of the lures. You know, 90% of fish are supposed to be caught by 10% of the anglers, but you know what? You're always going to go back to your roots and try stuff that you have confidence in. So for that being said, I like a medium-sized rod. Generally, I match the style of fishing I'm going to do for that day, whether it be in a tent or if I'm going to be outside on a bucket. If I'm going to be in a tent, I want to make sure that that rod is only going to be maybe 27, 30 inches out in front of me. I don't want that rod sticking into the front cover on an angle, so when I go to lift that, it's going to hit the ceiling and impede my hook set because I'm probably going to try to have that fish off the bottom, you know, at least a couple feet, if not 6, 8 feet. Depends how deep you're fishing. So with that being said, I want to make sure that I have the right piece of equipment for the right setup. And you know, you can vary that based on your own experiences. I like braid, Power Pro, or you know, the high braid line. The reason for that is like, you know, I know that when I set the hook on that fish, there's not a lot of stretch. I got a piece of fluorocarbon in there for, you know, invisibleness and not being able to see that lure. But when I go to set that hook, it's going to be a lot more contact to that fish than I would if I have something that's got monofilament, more stretch, and maybe less of an impact. And the other thing that I like about it is like those fish are going to go one way or another. If you're fishing pretty shallow, they might shoot off and they might rub the edge of the line on the hole. I can steer that fish. I can be a lot more aggressive and try to turn that fish up the hole. You know, the deeper the ice, you might, you know, have more of that fluorocarbon rubbing part of it. But I know that I'm going to be a lot more efficient at landing that fish than I would if I have to worry about how well he's hooked. It's just a better hook set for myself. The other thing, the swivel, the uni knot versus a small crane swivel. I like a small crane swivel. Anybody's been out there a long amount of time, that lure's doing a lot of this, 360. You're ripping it, it's going in a circle. You'll find that you start reeling that up, all of a sudden it's curling around the end of your rod. You lose the fish that you just, you know, head hook. Next thing you know, you're trying to reel that up, it's wrapped around the end of your tip. You know, braid line doesn't have a lot of memory, but with that being said, you're going to be able to get that back down there and get it back in front of that fish. And you might not catch the same one, but you might catch his brother or sister that was swimming with it. So that's my preference. You know, a lot of people have their own ideas about what they can see and what they can't see. I think the fluorocarbon at the end of that, and I might make it a 2 foot, I might make it a little longer, but I just want to make sure that I have enough on it in case I have to retie. I'm not got a small short piece in there. And the crane swivel, they make a lot of different ones. I like a Blackbird swivel. It's very small. It looks like an ant. I mean, I can tell you sometimes I got my graph on. I might have a fish come in. You get a perch looking at that little damn swivel, and he doesn't like my bait, but he's chewing on that swivel. I'm like, okay, but at least you know what? I got the right equipment for what I need. The next thing about fishing is dead sticks. I like a dead stick in a two-man shanty. I will not use one if I'm fishing out of my single or if I'm being effective in trying to target the fish with my one rod. What I will have is a rod backed up to my other one, because the last thing I want to do is not be able to get that lure out of that fish's mouth. I might have two rods rigged up with two jigging wraps. Sometimes it probably won't matter what color. You've already tried a couple different things, but the last thing you want, you got all those fish on the fish finder. They're down there going, where's my buddy at? I'm still hungry. And then you got this thing down there trying to get this lure out of the fish's mouth. So what I'll do, drop that thing on the bottom on the ice, get that other rod down there, capitalize on your time, and get that other fish active, hook them, or at least you made some effort to try to catch more fish. The dead stick for me, I like maybe a little longer rod, more softer tip. That allows that fish to maybe not feel that strong tensile end of the rod. What I tend to do is I'll have like a 6 or a 4 pound leader. You know what? I'll take the chance of having a lighter line and a lighter drag to get a walleye to bite, because what I try to do is I'll have a real small hook, maybe a number 4 octopus hook or like an Aberdeen. And what I'll do is I'll hook that minnow through the back, and I'll let that dead stick over here, and I got a leader maybe this long. And I've seen where that fish, that minnow, you know, he's not doing nothing, the rod's not moving, all of a sudden that tip starts going like this. And I know there's a fish coming, and so does he, and he's getting scared. So the thing he's gonna wanna do when that predator comes in, he's gonna wanna move. And if you can make him move by swimming away or up, you'll find that fish is gonna go to that fish and try to get away from him. You know, and that fish, that walleye will be in his face or try to grab that minnow, and then, you know, lights out, you got another fish on. Sometimes I get creative, you know, it's not busy, I'm not catching anything. I'll cut the back tail off of that minnow. You know, they got to swim to breathe. If he can't breathe, he's going to struggle down there. That struggle can draw fish in from, you know, 10 yards, 20, I don't know how far that range will go, but you're sending a signal out, you know. It's something that the fish trigger on, and they'll come to that bait wondering why that fish is in distress. If everything's normal, you can see where a fish had come in and that minnow's just hooked in the back. He's just hanging out down there. He's really injured. He's not really, you know, in distress. That walleye sometimes will go right by him. But some of those things, just think about, put that in your toolbox and make that minnow, you know, struggle a little bit, I guess, at the end of the day. Let's see, what else? We talked about the tip, the dead stick. I'm a big fan of Glow. I was lucky enough to get contacted by Dave Figuera. It's already been 10 years, 11 years ago. What is Brian doing different to capitalize on catching fish than everybody else? You know what? Probably nothing, but I knew that I could use Glow lures early and late. I was very effective charging my lure and catching a lot of fish. I could actually know that if I put that Glow down and I just illuminated it, that it was being able to be seen by the fish better. You think about being out there and you got 20 inches of ice, you got a foot of snow on it, it's dark down there. Walleyes are good seen in low light, but you know what? If you can make it better, you know, or to have a little advantage, charge that lure up. I had a camera flash that I took off a 35 millimeter camera, and I would bring that with me. I would actually ignite that lure. You know, I would flash it with a flasher, and that thing was glowing like no tomorrow. I'd get it back down there, boom, there comes a fish. And I think like, you know, it's like you in the middle of the night, you know, you get up in the middle of the night, you're hungry, you go to the refrigerator, you open the door, and the light in the refrigerator doesn't work. So what are you gonna get? Well, you know, you don't know what's in there, but you know, if you can have a little advantage, I just think about that stuff all the time. I want an edge, right? I want to be ahead of the guy next to me, and I want to tell somebody what I know and try to help them get successful. You know, I think about the new style baits that are out there. You know, the glide baits Matt talks about in his angling channel. Those things that were not out here years ago. You know, one of the guys in the Midwest, you watch him on YouTube, and I've watched a ton of his videos. He is really good. He's fishing a lot of lakes. He's going to places during the week or during the day, but he is very effective. And glide baits to me are a great tool because it's a search bait. You know, you lift that thing up and it's circling the area, but it's drawn attention. They have rattles in them, they have different colors. I'm not a fan of adding bait to a glide bait just because it's going to impede the action of the lure. But again, I know that I'm just going to cover more water. I might get some other fish to trigger on that noise and that style of bait. But again, you like to have the moonshine lures. They have a different kind of action, but they are high glow. They are very effective, and they have their place in your tackle box for certain days. So don't ever leave them out. You might want to think about, you know, like I said, banging the bottom about the bait in the bottom. But what I'll do is I might take a big heavy, you know, moonshine or a big number 9 jig and wrap, and I'm slamming the bottom. I haven't seen fish in a while. It's sending like a wave across the bottom. All that noise is going out. But you'll be surprised that it'll draw fish in because they want to know what's different. Maybe there's a fish that think is in distress in the mud, or it's a bunch of bugs hatching, but somehow, some way, it's going to trigger more fish. The other thing, like when I add bait to hooks, I like fresh bait. Like if I got minnows, I'm a fan of fatheads. I can keep them alive a lot longer. Not a big fan of buckeyes. They're very fragile. When I first started fishing, when I was younger, I'd put a big minnow on, you know, put that bit lure down there, and those fish would come in and they wouldn't always take it. I'm like, man, I can't understand, you know, all that bait, why don't they just want to eat it? But sometimes fish want to know that there's something wrong or there's some blood in the water. It's like a shark. You know, you put a drop of blood in the water, that shark knows that's out there and they're coming for it. So like cutting the minnow in half and putting that little minnow head on the bottom of that hook can make a difference whether you catch a fish or not sometimes. And it just goes back to looking and knowing how active those fish are. Once I know that fish is underneath me and that minnow head's on there and everything's fresh, I'm gonna be a lot more effective and a lot more efficient. And I like just, you know, thinking outside the box, maybe just putting the minnow head on the back of the hook. You know, you can do a lot of creative stuff, but don't get stuck doing the same thing. Try different things, I guess is my point. How am I doing on time? Good stuff. Okay, so say I'm stuck in the shanty, I can't move around a lot, and I'm thinking about, you know, what can I do? I don't have these fish coming around, and I got spikes in my pocket. I'm a big fan of making the bait squirm and being lively. I've had my spikes in a container in my pocket next to my hand warmer most of the day. I've got those things in there, you open the top and they're just like, let me out of here, I'm sweating. But you know what? What I'll do is I'll take a handful of those spikes and drop them in my hole. Next thing you know, it's going down your graph and you see all those things just falling through the water column, and then they get in the water column, and it's somehow, it'll attract those fish. But the other thing it does, it's on the bottom, and now all of a sudden you got a bunch of bait on the bottom, just, you know, trying to get back to normal, but they're moving around, and it could be another thing that you could do to bring those fish in. And that's just some of the things besides, you know, adding scent to lures. I watched a video today because I just get caught up in just having some free time, and I watched this doctor talk about fish and scent. And these guys, actually, what they did, they took some bass, and I'm not a bass fisherman, but they had the same idea. They took these bass and they covered different senses, and they took them away from their home. And what they found is that the bass trigger on scent more than any other thing, sight, sound, but their relationship to scent was the highest. They found if they took these fish 200 meters away from their home, that they could sense back to their home through their scent gland, and they said they were 2 times more effective with scent than they would be any other time. I'm like, you know what? I love putting scent on stuff. If you know me as a tournament angler, me and Don Birdie been out there tournament fishing. What am I doing? I'm spraying garlic on every lure, hopefully downwind. You know what? I want to have an advantage, and I'm putting some scent on some stuff. And as long as Don doesn't get in his mouth, we're good. He did a public service announcement. I don't know if you caught that video that Matt did, but that was awesome, right? Just pay attention to what you're doing and try to have an advantage. Same thing with ice fishing. I put scent on stuff. If I don't think that I'm getting the kind of attention I can get and I can't move around, I'm definitely going to bring that stuff with me and put it to the test. You know, I think like every experience, I can tell you that it just, you know, make the best of it. You know, it's a hobby. Be safe. Learn something every time you go out there. be versatile, you know, just have the confidence in your ability, you know. I don't expect to catch fish every time, and I can tell you to your face today, I went fishing last Sunday for the first time, and I didn't catch a fish. You know what? I'm not that guy to catch fish every time, but you know what? I'm honest, and I'll tell you that, you know, it wasn't my day to catch anything. I spent a couple hours out there, but what I got out of it, I got fresh air, I got some exercise, and I was happy to be out there. I'll find times, you know, me and the kids are going across the lake, and I stop in the middle of the lake, you know, and they're like, "Wait, what are you doing? Where are we going?" I said, "The sun's coming up. Let's get this picture right now." You know what? We might not see that if we were sitting on the couch or we slept in. I might send a picture to my wife on the way to work. I'll go down to the park. You know what? 6 o'clock in the morning. Instead of me going to work, I'm going down there to take a picture. You know, that's the kind of stuff that you need to absorb, you know. It makes you healthy, keeps you outside, and it's good for everything, you know. It's just very healthy. One last thing about the lures and colors. Not trying to promote anything, but just to give you an idea with glow and how it illuminates in the water, the next thing is ultraviolet. I don't know how many fishermen have gone to the bait shop and they've got stuff painted ultraviolet. It's got a covering over it that's not visible to the naked eye, but it's visible to fish and it's visible in deeper water. And what I mean by that, this is a lure that has ultraviolet properties. So this lure is it's a hammer lure, sorry, I got to promote, but you know what? I have ice fishing lures that have UV. And what happens when it gets in the water, Carl Capper was here to tell you, because we talk about this every time I see him, that this is what the fish see. You see how colorful that is? Even on a dark, it was completely dark out, and that's got no light to it besides the camera taking the picture. So the deeper the water, certain colors disappear, but with ultraviolet added to it, you're going to be one step ahead of the game by having a little more edge. But with that being said, those are some of the things that you try and add to your toolbox that can make you more successful. I think I've talked about pretty much everything that I can think of. I appreciate everybody coming and listening. And if you have any questions, man, I'm open to the floor.
Let's see if I can turn this on without it going nuts on us again. Thank you, buddy.
Awesome.
That was awesome. Everybody, please. You know, the thing that we have such in common is how you look at your days. You know, and without being all philosophical, I mean, the fact is that I think I have more pictures of sunrises on my phone than I do of fish. And I look at it every single morning when I'm out there. But let's talk let's do a couple little things about ice fishing.
Sure.
With any luck, we still have a month left.
Yeah.
I mean, next week doesn't look great, but I hope everybody is careful and really takes your words to heart, because it is just fishing. And at the end of the day, fishing's fishing, and I don't want to see anybody not here next year because we made a bad decision on questionable conditions.
Yeah.
That's all.
I got 3 grandkids. I want to see them grow up, man, and they want to see Papa come home.
Yeah,
You know?
and that's first and foremost. And this didn't work out perfectly with the way the weather was this
Right.
year. I mean, in a perfect world, we would be right in full-blown ice season, and we'd really be talking about technical things, maybe more than we are. My wife back there is waiting frantically. We're going to do last call for all the raffle tickets, and as soon as we're done here, I'm going to do the raffles. So let's say right now, you're going out tomorrow morning, Super Bowl Sunday. Now, you said you were out last week, so I want to go out tomorrow and I want to catch a walleye. And just give me where you're going to start depth-wise looking, and what's the first bait you're putting through the hole.
Well, I was out last weekend. I had fish under me most of the whole time I was there. I couldn't get them to go. It was a midday lull, but like if I'm going to go out tomorrow morning, I'll probably fish a little deeper than I would, just because it's this time of the year. We had fish out in 18 to 20 foot of water. I saw guys out there fishing today. They were fishing south of the islands. We had a few other guys that were buddies of mine that were fishing down towards Frenchman's. They said they had 7 inches of ice. You know, I'm heading out there. I'm gonna fish that dumping ground. I'm gonna pack light, you know, the weather's conducive for that. And I'm gonna fish a jig and wrap. And then I'm gonna change to like a vertical bait, like a Castmaster. If I can't get them to go and they're coming in on that horizontal bait, maybe they've already seen all those other guys using something horizontal, or vice versa. Try both. You know what? I wanna know that I have both options. You know, sometimes they like that profile because they're under it and they're going up. Dragging a lure through the water out trolling, maybe that's the presentation or the profile they're used to eating, and maybe that's what's triggering on, I don't know, but I'm overthinking it sometimes, but that's my nature. I just
Okay,
want to know.
So you go horizontal to vertical.
Right, try both.
Are you tipping it?
I definitely would tip it. You know, they're looking to eat. Sometimes you'll find with, obviously cold fronts are harder, but with this weather pattern changing, you know, those fish will be a little more apt to be readily wanting to eat. You know, you think about what walleyes have been doing, you know, the females have had eggs since, you know, late September. They really start getting eggs in September.
Yeah.
I've had times where I thought, you know, somebody's, hey, let's go walleye fishing. I'm like, August, September. August was good. September started slowing down. I might not spend as much time doing that, knowing that if those, I've seen where the walleyes have to get used to their body changing. I might catch smaller fish. I might not catch as many, but I know that something's changing. They're going to get used to the water temperature changing. But I know that now that they've had a time to adjust and get their body weight added back for the eggs, that they're going to probably be more receptive to eating more frequently when the weather's better. That's what I found.
Okay, interesting. So you're switching vertical, horizontal. In a year like this where there's no snow cover on the ice, does that affect your color choice?
Just because and here's the thing, I mean, I probably wouldn't go out there now just because of the conditions. I will wait till it's lighter. I got a perch jig and wrap on, or I might have a purple and whatever, but I'll have some colors available. I mean, if you look at this box, we're all crazy fishermen. I like to be organized, but, you know, and I'm sure everybody's got their kind of setup, but what I've done is, you know, I'm ready, you know, I got a bunch of different colors in there. There's a different styles and sizes, but I can readily grab something and change it and just, you know, start switching it around. You know, just knowing that something should work, you know, spend your time not getting stuck on one thing. And like I said, to be effective, you got to switch it up or move a little bit. I know, like, you know, I was lucky enough to fish next to my buddy last week, and he bought the new Garmin Panoptix, man. This thing's $3,500 ice fishing unit. I'm like, dude, you put that down there, you can see the fish are over there, they're over there. But you know what? You still got to get them underneath you, and you got to get them to bite. You know, we can know where they are. It's kind of helps your, you know, where you're going to go, what you're going to do. But
Okay,
at
so
the end of the
leading
day,
into my next question.
yeah,
So you switch through presentations, you now have fish under you, and they're not coming in and kamikaze charging you. So what is your first move? They're on screen,
Yeah.
they're on live scope. What are you doing with them? Where's your bait in the column? And what are you trying to get them to do so they'll come and eat?
so I'll go as far as, and Nick was probably going to talk about this, is maybe downsize. Go to like a tungsten jig and put some plastic on it or put spikes on it, but maybe changing size profile altogether and maybe be more aggressive or less aggressive based on how they reacted to my bait when they first came in there. You know, you're going to find sometimes that they don't want to know nothing. They're just swimming around. Other times, some of those triggers, by changing size, color, profile, can adjust to that bite where, you know, those fish will trigger. And sometimes when that fish is ready to go, it makes those other fish just like, hey, he's eating, I got to eat. You might catch a couple more fish. It's not foolproof, but you know what? You did something different. My thing is to try to get the fish off the bottom. Once I know that they're in their area on the bottom, unless they're digging or diving and they're chasing down, I want that fish to come off bottom. The higher I get them off the bottom, the better I can control that one fish rather than having a bunch of them looking at it and not doing anything.
Really?
Yeah, I like them off the bottom.
When we were lake trout fishing last weekend, the guys were explaining to me when you saw on, and we had live scope and flashers going.
Yeah.
And when you got that lake trout to break the bottom and to start to do this, he almost said to me, he goes, you know, you really can't reel fast enough
To get a,
because those trout really want to chase. And you'd be like this, bringing it up as fast, and he said he would have fish come up and swirl in the hole. They would have chased it all the way up. Now,
right, yeah.
how we know walleyes in open water don't typically chase a lot.
Right.
How much are you trying to get them to chase you when you get them off the bottom?
That's a really good question, because if anybody's done a lot of fishing and you reel a fish out of the bottom, their bladder comes out of their stomach or out of their throat up into their mouth, right? Lake trout are different. They can come up and down because they don't have that bladder to balance their body. So that's a different animal, right? But if I can keep that fish in the zone and I can get them in that area off the bottom, I might not be very aggressive, but I'm working to try to keep them, you know, in that area of that where that bait is. And it's all different every time. Like if it's a good school of fish, it could be lights out. You know, you get that one to go, all of a sudden they disappear on your fish finder. I know that they're a lot closer to me than being down in that range. When I have that fish finder on, I got the bottom zoomed in. I might only be looking at the 6-8 feet off the bottom depending on how deep I'm fishing, just because you get more of a picture, you can tell how the separation is, and I can almost count how many fish are together, just because I'm used to that. I mean, the Vexilar guys are good at what they do, that's their cup of tea, and I'm not, you know, that's not me. I just like what I'm used to using and how effective it's made me a better angler and be more efficient.
Okay.
You know, but again, I want that fish up, and then once I get them to go, you know, I know that if those other fish came up with them, you know, that fish comes off, those other fish are busy, man. I can almost guarantee you if I can stop that rod or that lure down in that area where them fish were, even though I don't see them on the graph, most likely they've got that bait in their mouth because it was free falling back into where they were. Well, they saw it coming back, their buddy's missing, he got something they didn't get, you know, they're going to go after it and they're going to eat it. You know, that's the kind of difference of working one fish compared to working a school.
Gotcha. Well, that's a great point.
You know,
Before we close it up, does anybody have any questions for Brian? Anybody? Bueller? All right, we're gonna take 5 and then we're gonna get the raffles going. So if anybody still wants tickets, head over there. If not, we'll be back in 5.
awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, buddy.
Later, brother. Yeah.
Before we go any further.